Hi guys, welcome back. Tonight, we are diving into one of the most legendary tragedies of the Warhammer 40,000 universe. The story of the Horus Heresy, the betrayal that would tear the Imperium of Man apart. The Emperor of Mankind was not just a ruler, he was the greatest mind humanity had ever produced. A being of unparalleled intellect, power, and vision. From Terra, he looked out across the stars and saw the potential of mankind, a species shackled by superstition, fear, and ignorance. He dreamed of a galaxy united under reason, science, and progress. No tyrants, no false gods, no chaos to corrupt the minds of men. Humanity would rise and conquer the stars under his guidance. But the Emperor understood that such a monumental dream could not be accomplished alone. To lead humanity, he created the Primarchs, 20 genetically engineered sons, each a living embodiment of his will, each designed to be a demigod in both strength and intellect. Each Primarch was more than a warrior. They were commanders, philosophers, generals, and icons of humanity's potential. These sons were scattered across the galaxy by the forces of the warp, cast onto countless worlds by an act of chaos itself. Each planet shaped them, each challenge hardened them, and each victory or failure forged them into leaders of vast armies. Some would become heroes, others tragic figures. Some would fall to corruption, while a few would remain loyal to the vision of their father. Among them, one shone brighter than all, Horus Heresy. He was the Emperor's favorite, the War Master, and the brightest star among the Primarchs. Horus was a warrior unmatched in courage, a general whose strategies won countless battles, and a leader whose presence inspired legions of men. When he spoke, his words moved armies. When he fought, he led from the front, never asking others to do what he would not do himself. The Emperor, seeing Horus's brilliance, appointed him War Master, commander of all the Great Crusade in his absence. It was the highest honor a son could receive, and it came with immense responsibility. Under Horus, the legions of Space Marines spread the light of the Imperium across thousands of star systems. Worlds were liberated from tyrants and Xenos threats. Civilizations were brought into the fold, and humanity's reach across the stars expanded further than ever before. Yet power is a double-edged sword. While Horus led the crusade, whispers began to creep into the shadows. The forces of chaos, long held at bay by the Emperor's power, turned their gaze toward Horus. They knew that if they could corrupt the War Master, the greatest weapon of humanity could be turned against its own kind. And so, their dark whispers began, subtle at first, like shadows at the edge of light. The fateful turning point came on the icy world of Davin. Horus, wounded in battle, was brought before a temple by chaos cultists who sought to sway him. There, while he lay weakened, visions of the future were shown to him. A galaxy where the Emperor sat as a tyrant, a god among men, discarding those who had served him. Chaos painted a vision of inevitability, power, and glory. But only if Horus turned his loyalty away from his father. Horus, filled with pride and ambition, believed these visions. The seed of betrayal took root in his heart. He returned to his legion no longer as the loyal War Master, but as the chosen instrument of chaos. At first, his treachery was subtle. Whispers to his brothers, doubts planted in their minds, questions about the Emperor's motives. But soon, entire legions fell in line, seduced by the promise of power, the thrill of defiance, and the insidious pull of chaos. Primarchs like Fulgrim, Angron, Mortarion, and Lorgar gave themselves to the dark gods, each for their own reasons, each believing they could shape the galaxy as they saw fit. loyal legions, torn by doubt and manipulation, began to fracture, and the galaxy stood on the edge of the greatest civil war it had ever seen. The first act of open betrayal came at Istvan III, where Horus lured loyalist legions into what appeared to be a fair engagement. But it was a trap. Legions who had pledged loyalty to the Emperor turned their weapons on their brothers, slaughtering them in cold blood. The world burned, rivers of blood flowed, and the galaxy trembled at the horror of space marines killing their own kind. The Horus Heresy had begun, and nothing would ever be the same. World after world was engulfed in civil war. Loyalist forces fought desperately to hold back the tide of traitors. Legions that had once marched together now clashed in unimaginable slaughter. The Great Crusade, once a mission of hope and unity, had become a nightmare of fratricide, fire, and betrayal. The heresy spread across the galaxy like wildfire. Worlds that had once welcomed the Emperor's sons now burned under the armies of Horus. Loyalist legions struggled to contain the tide of betrayal, yet the traitors' numbers were vast, and their fury unmatched. Battles raged on planets, moons, and orbital stations alike, leaving scorched cities and shattered civilizations in their wake. Robout Guilliman, the Primarch of the Ultramarines, marshaled his forces to hold the eastern fringes of the Imperium. His discipline and strategic genius saved countless systems, yet even he could not stop the advance of the War Master's armies. The Dark Angels, engaged in distant crusades, returned to find their home systems in revolt, their brothers tainted by chaos. The galaxy seemed to fracture in every direction at once, as brother turned against brother. Horus, emboldened by his victories, became more daring with each campaign. Entire systems fell to his manipulation and military genius. The War Master was no longer merely a commander. He had become a symbol of defiance against the Emperor himself. The Imperium teetered on the brink of collapse. As the vision of unity the Emperor had spent millennia shaping seemed to slip away like smoke. And then Horus set his sights on Terra, the heart of the Imperium. The Imperial Palace, the greatest fortress humanity had ever built, became the stage for the galaxy's darkest hour. Rogel Dorn and the Imperial Fists fortified the walls, preparing for the onslaught that would decide the fate of mankind. Sanguinius, the angelic Primarch of the Blood Angels, rallied his sons, knowing that the coming siege would demand sacrifices beyond imagining. Jaghatai Khan and the White Scars brought their speed and cunning, attempting to disrupt the movements of the traitor legions before they could breach the planetary defenses. The skies above Terra burned with the fire of thousands of ships. Fleets clashed in orbit, torn apart by macro cannons and plasma barrages. The sound of 1,000 warships firing simultaneously echoed across the void, reverberating down to the surface where millions of Imperial Guardsmen, Titan crews, and Space Marines fought tooth and nail against invaders in close-quarters battle. The siege of Terra had begun, and it would last for months. Despite the overwhelming odds, the defenders held. Every breach was met with ferocious counterattacks. Every assault repelled with determination that defied death itself. Yet the War Master was relentless. His traitor legions fought with the ferocity of men who had turned from light into shadow, and each victory for Horus brought Terra closer to ruin. Cities were destroyed, palaces burned, and rivers of blood carved new valleys into the surface of the planet. At last, Horus, confident in his power and driven by the whispers of chaos, lowered the shields of his flagship, daring the Emperor to face him. This was the culmination of his betrayal, the ultimate confrontation between father and son. The Emperor, accompanied by Sanguinius and a small host of loyal warriors, teleported aboard the War Master's vessel. Destiny awaited them in the dark, labyrinthine corridors of the ship. Sanguinius confronted Horus first. His wings spread, his halo burning with righteous fury. The angelic Primarch sought to reach the heart of his brother. But Horus, corrupted beyond redemption, struck him down with devastating power. Sanguinius fell, a martyr in the Emperor's cause, and the path to the War Master was laid bare. Finally, the Emperor faced Horus. Father against son, the War Master against the Master of mankind. Every strike sent shockwaves through the vessel, tearing apart corridors and decks alike. Horus fought with the might of chaos itself, wielding strength beyond mortal comprehension. The Emperor countered, his own power immense, but tempered by love and grief for the son he had cherished. For hours, the duel raged. Reality itself seemed to bend around the two combatants. The Emperor pleaded for Horus to return, to cast off the chains of chaos and come home. But Horus refused. He had gone too far, consumed by pride, ambition, and the whispers of dark gods. The father realized that salvation was impossible, and with a heavy heart, he unleashed the full force of his power. Horus was destroyed in a cataclysm that left the War Master's flagship in ruins. The Emperor, gravely wounded in the confrontation, was irreparably broken. He was carried back to Terra and placed upon the Golden Throne, sustained by the psychic sacrifice of millions, neither alive nor dead. The Imperium survived, but at a terrible cost. The Horus Heresy left scars that could never fully heal. Planets were destroyed, cultures obliterated, and the very fabric of human society had been tested. Yet in this darkness, the Imperium endured. Its strength came not just from arms and warriors, but from the stories of loyalty, sacrifice, and courage that survived the flames. Each battle, each loss, each hero's death reinforced the grim reality of the 41st millennium. A galaxy in constant struggle, shaped by the choices of men, heroes, and monsters alike. Horus Lupercal, once the brightest star among the Primarchs, became a legend of caution and tragedy. His fall to chaos demonstrated the fragility of even the most noble of hearts. Yet, in this tragedy, the Imperium found resilience. The loyalty of those who remained, the sacrifices of the fallen, and the enduring vision of the Emperor ensured that humanity survived. And so, the heresy ended, but its echoes would last forever. Across the Imperium, stories were told of brother against brother, of heroes who fell and villains who rose, of worlds burning and sacrifices remembered. The galaxy was forever changed, yet life endured. Humanity's dream had been fractured, but it had not been extinguished. In the grim darkness of the far future, there is only war.